Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Oner podcast, the podcast where we break down and review films all in one big, long, unbroken take. I'm Austin Archer, and with me, as always, is my childhood next-door neighbor and lifelong best friend,
Cramer, England.
Today, we are doing a look back at Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of one Harley Quinn from 2020. This movie's already 6 years old, and
it was after the first week they changed the name to Harley Quinn Birds of Prey,
which is
a very unsuccessful move that didn't do much.
Yeah, I guess right out of the gate we can say that this movie is titled wrong.
Yes,
it is. This movie is not a Birds of Prey film. It is 100% a movie about Harley Quinn.
Yes.
And the Birds of Prey are in it. This is like if you called the Batman Catwoman and how Batman stopped the Riddler. That's not what that movie is. Catwoman's in there. She has a B plot. She helps Batman with his plot, but it's not a Catwoman film. And it's fine that the Birds of Prey are here, that they're introduced in this film, and that the DCEU wanted to bring them in this way. It's just not at all their film by any stretch of the imagination.
No, not even close. I mean, they really get together in the last 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, and it's like these team up films often have a focal character. Star-Lord is your focal character for the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and even kind of, through the series, but he less so in maybe the third one, but he kind of is for the first two. Even in the Suicide Squad, it feels like in James Gunn's movie, we're focusing more on Harley Quinn, but also I think that it's fine to have a character that's going to get more screen time than the others in the team. This just isn't actually a team up film. It's a Harley Quinn movie.
It is.
And,
she's the protagonist. It's all about her. It's her journey.
Yeah.
She's the one who gets a payoff at the end.
Yeah.
And I mean, the title of a movie doesn't really make a difference unless it does. And this is a movie where it kind of does, because I mean, honestly, it probably didn't even make that much of a difference. But if they would have titled it Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey or something along those lines, I think it would have been better. It would have helped.
Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey is a better title than Harley Quinn Birds of Prey. That's a terrible title.
That doesn't even make any sense. But
Harley Quinn Birds of Prey is worse than Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of one Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
I actually think the best title for this film is The Fantabulous Emancipation of one Harley Quinn. I think it should just be called that, because that's what the movie's about. And that title to me reflects the energy of this film. It reflects the mood and the tone and the vibe of this film.
Totally.
And I just think that they whiffed on that, which is very indicative of this iteration of this attempt at an extended universe of films. The DCEU was floundering and was all over the place. And I think that that element has a lot to do with how this film was received when it first came out. I am curious to know, though, what are your general thoughts on that? You've never seen this before, so just coming to it 2026, 6 years later.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
I mean, honestly, there's a lot of good stuff in this movie. There's some fun action sequences. It has a lot of style. I really like the cinematography. I like the action scenes. There's a lot of fun stuff. Halfway through the movie, it lost it for me. It just got a little too convoluted. It got a little too, it kind of lost its way, and it lost kind of the fun halfway through. And then it just kind of felt hobbled together and a little messy in the second half of the movie. Now, having said that, I enjoyed it. I had fun with it. And there's a lot of really good stuff in here. I did like it a lot more than Supergirl, just because we're doing this, and kind of as a companion with those two. I just felt that there was a lot more to like about this movie. But yeah, I mean, overall, solid film. Not one of the best. Definitely not one of the worst. I think they could have, there's a lot of things which I think we can go into this a little bit later, but I really kind of want to deconstruct why this movie didn't do as well as it could have, because there are also a lot of other factors. I mean, it came out right before COVID. It came out, with a lot of different things that were kind of going against this movie. We'll get into that more, but what are your thoughts on the rewatch for you?
I remembered so little about this film. I remembered like the vibe, the tone, the color palette, and I remember liking all of that on the first watch. I remember liking it more than David Ayer's terrible Suicide Squad film, which, there's a lot to be said about. Is that David Ayer's fault? Is that the fault of Warner Brothers for having it re-edited by these the trailer company, whatever. I just feel like that movie's a mess on the script, in the script. I just don't think it's a very good story. And I just feel like the execution of that movie was whoever's fault it was. The edit that made it to audiences was, it's a really bad movie. And this certainly was an improvement on that. I remember at the time feeling like it wasn't enough of an improvement for me to really care. It was like, that was better, but who cares? Like, better than a really bad movie. And I largely just sort of wrote it off and forgot about it, because also it felt like nothing in the DCEU mattered. It just felt like they were constantly changing their minds on what kind of story they were trying to tell overall, with like, when you think about the MCU, those first few phases, Iron Man to Endgame, it's not like it's this perfect cohesive tone and vision, but those first like 22 movies work pretty well together, surprisingly, at maintaining, for the most part, a pretty solid continuity and a pretty solid tone. And like, it makes sense that all of those characters are in the same universe with each other. Right away, when you watch this movie, you're like, I have a really hard time imagining Henry Cavill's Superman existing in this universe. They just feel very different, which is maybe DC's thing anyway, is that their differing comic book strips are just, they live in very different tonal worlds. And I don't know. I just feel like the ride of trying to get in on the DCEU when it was happening was very weird, because every time you went to the theater, it felt like they were always in the process of course correcting or trying to like out Marvel. So all of that being said, that was my first time watching it. Coming back to it today, I just watched it earlier today.
Oh, nice.
After having not seen it in 6 years, and after having largely gotten it, and not seeing it in the context of comparing it to the other films in the DCU, not thinking about how does this fit in with Man of Steel, not thinking about any of that.
Yeah.
I loved this movie. I had so much fun watching this movie. I feel like it's like if DC saw what James Gunn did with Suicide Squad and said, let's put that guy in charge of the new universe, I can't believe that Kathy Yan has been sort of just discarded and tossed to the side. She hasn't made a movie since this. And
she's made one.
Just
came out. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's I'm surprised she hasn't been making more. To your point, like totally. I think this is a very well handled film.
Yeah.
Like everything, like I said, halfway through the movie it kind of falls apart, but it doesn't shatter. Like it just. But she is very capable, and she does a great job of having style and keeping the tone of the movie and getting her protagonist, who is Harley Quinn, to a resolution in her journey. Like totally. She nails all of that. And same with the writer. Is it Christina Hodson? Sorry. They both accomplish something that is hard to do. So they do a good job,
especially given this. I almost feel like the degree of difficulty was harder coming off of the disaster that was Suicide Squad, and trying to go, let's take this one thing that everyone agreed worked, which was Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, and let's see if we can build on that. It almost feels like this film is the kind of film that was promised by those really cool trailers for David Ayer's Suicide Squad.
Yes,
and
I agree. Yeah,
like those trailers got everyone so hyped, and especially the one with Bohemian Rhapsody. It's like a very talked about thing on the internet, the difference between the feeling of that trailer and the letdown of the film. And watching this movie, I was like, this is the movie that they were sort of I think that David Ayer was trying, or did a swing and a miss maybe, and maybe that movie's just got too many characters in it. Maybe it's just too much too soon. Because this movie almost feels like it's got a little bit too much. And I would
It
even say
does, yeah.
when you talk about that second half, it's when they try to take this really good Harley Quinn movie and force it into a team
Yes,
up Birds of Prey movie that
exactly.
it loses some of its character.
Yeah.
I would argue still that like I was still in on that third act. I definitely was like, hey, I don't really care about this team up. I don't really, but then the action sequence happened and I was like, this is still so much fun. Like
Yes. Yeah, the
you
action
know,
saves it for sure.
yeah,
But
and
yeah, yeah,
it's really well handled
it
action.
is.
I
It is.
was I was constantly surprised. I mean, we'll talk about that with highest highs, but
Yeah, yeah.
and like what's working and what's not working here. I guess just my overall thought was, yeah, I just was like so surprised at how much did work for me here. Um, and I definitely am surprised that more people aren't looking at Kathy Yan as like a, hey, that person knows how to do this at a really high level.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, and I mean, she did the action really well, and I saw these comments a lot when I was, looking at old reviews and things. The action scenes are easy to follow.
yeah.
They're more wide shots, and the action is really good. And they did have, I think I read this. I probably need to check this again, but they did have Chad Stahelski come in, who did the John Wick movies, and he helped with the action. I think on some reshoots, and I think you can see that it works really well. Which awesome, like the action works really well. I mean, and you can
Hey,
see things, and it's easy to follow. It's not like crazy frenetic, all this cutting. Like that one sequence when at the very end when Harley is chasing after the car and she's on Huntress's motorcycle and she gets like that
mhm,
was a great awesome chase scene.
awesome.
It's really great, and I
And
can see it and I can follow it, and it's easy. Like there's not a ton of cutting. It's really well
I
handled.
love how inventive everything is too.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I feel like in all of the action sequences, they would take it to the next place and I'd go like, oh, that's so creative. Like
yeah,
that's so, like that she starts off like kind of jets, almost like water skiing behind
yeah,
Huntress's motorcycle, and she's on her skates. And then the next time she gets to Huntress, she's like in front of it and she's holding onto the
mhm,
front of the motorcycle and going backwards on her skates. And then the
yeah,
ways that they
yeah,
played with the roller skates and it never got to a level where it was like silly, where it's like, oh, I don't like I like that the roller skates were platformed in the first act of the film, and then they
yes,
came back in the third act. With the roller derby and
yeah,
the way that they kind of platform Harley Quinn's skill set, it felt like roller skating along with a car hanging onto it seems like the kind of thing that's like right in her wheelhouse. Seems
totally,
like,
totally.
yeah,
It's the character perfectly.
yeah, and they
And
had, yeah, yeah,
yeah, you want that you want to have the action scenes play off of the characters that are in them. And Harley Quinn is a very out there character and it works really, really well. I just checked. Chad Stahelski did serve as a second unit director for the reshoots. And he came in and kind of helped with the action sequence,
well,
which is great, which is
and
great.
I thought this thought today. I thought if you ever needed more proof that Hollywood is still very much so a misogynistic boys club, look at, the way that Kathy Yan's career was treated after this film. And I had the thought, if Chad Stahelski had directed this movie, they would have hired Chad Stahelski to be the guy for the DCU.
Probably.
I feel like a lot of what works in James Gunn's Suicide Squad is just borrowed from what's working here. Like I feel like that tone just carries over the edginess of the rated R stuff, the color palette, the color grading, the editing. I just feel like, and to be fair, Kathy Yan still borrows some of the editing stuff from Suicide Squad. The like whole kind of like title cards of characters of like, here's who
Yeah,
this
yeah,
person is. I just
yeah.
feel like it works a lot better in this movie than it works in Suicide Squad. Everything just feels more intentional. Things in Suicide Squad felt like they were done after the fact. Like the movie
Yeah.
was not shot to be edited that way, and they did it all in post. This movie feels like it was shot to be edited the way that it's edited, where we're kind of jumping back and forth in time and we're sort of moving around. It feels like on the page it was structured that way.
Mhm.
And then I would just say, yeah, like being a good director doesn't mean, especially to do good action, doesn't mean you have to yourself be the world's best fight choreographer or know everything. If you're going to do dance sequence, I always say, like, once a movie has this much fight choreography in it, it's effectively a dance film. And I always prefer wider, longer takes of the choreography if you can. Chad Stahelski gets that. And it's smart from a production standpoint to go, the person in charge who's directing doesn't need to be the person who's handling all of this.
Right.
Just like they're not doing the costume design, the lighting design,
there's very few directors who are directing action.
Right.
And like they have a second unit crew, and there's one guy, I can't remember who it is. He does all the stuff for Matthew Vaughn, and Matthew Vaughn's action is awesome. But Matthew Vaughn knows, I'll get this guy who I really like, and we'll figure it out together, and he'll go and do it. And that's what a good director does. They delegate, right? And it's not that they're not doing anything with it, which I'm sure Kathy Yan was consulting with all this, right?
Of course.
So like that's what a great director does. They get the people who are good at what they do, and they let them do what they do.
Yeah, let them do their job. And it shows in this film. And that takes us right into highest highs out of general thoughts, because my first highest high was just the I forgot how much action is in this movie and how consistently well executed it is. Totally. I just was like continuously, every time a new action sequence would happen, I'd think like even small ones, like this one with Journey Smollett in the alleyway where she's just kind of fighting those guys. I was like, this is a cool scene. When she kicks that guy's head through the window, I was like, awesome.
And Harley's drunk. So she's like, it's a great element. There's a few different, rather than just fighting, there's another element in there that makes it more interesting.
Yeah.
Harley's drunk and she's like, I can handle myself. Right. And I thought it's a really small, but very creative and well executed fight.
Yeah. And I forgot how big this one in the middle of the movie is, this jailbreak. I love that, like, we start with her going through the main office with her fun gun and shooting people with this beanbag gun and these like these sparkles and stuff. That scene's awesome. It's visually stunning. But then we pause and go back because she's telling the story kind of out of order. We go back into it for her to get the girl out of her prison cell. We do the fight in the sprinklers with the inmates, which is awesome. And like there's some moves in there that I was like, these are so cool. And it's really cool because we see it all. It's not like 5 cuts. Like when she does those like cartwheel kicks or those like front, those front flip kicks and
the stunt performers in this movie were awesome.
Yeah.
They did such a great job.
Yeah.
It was great. That whole section was a ton of fun too. Like, and it does go like, cause she has the, she shoots all the cops with the beanbag. She has the sprinklers fight. And then she has to run away from the bunch of the people in the like evidence room.
More assassins, more mercenaries show up who have been hired by Black Mask, and they show up and she has to fight them in the evidence room.
And the cocaine, and she sniffs the cocaine, and like it's a lot of stuff, really fun. Really
well, like
really
like to like in that one setting to be like, we're going to start off with this sort of Matrix style, like walking into the place with the trench coat, but it's Harley Quinn's version of that, and kind of blast our way through the main offices of this police place, and then like changing location to now it's going to be this fight in the rain inside with a bunch of inmates, changing location again, now it's her versus all of these assassins in the evidence room using stuff that she's finding on shelves. And like I just thought like the again the creativity here, I thought the amount of times in the MCU that we've and over the years we've gotten used to sort of like the way that they have women fight in these movies, and it's always like we've seen that move where a woman jumps up on a guy's like shoulders, piggyback style with her legs, and grabs his head with her thighs and then throws him down to the ground, uses the momentum. We've seen that about 1 million times from Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, and that's like they do that move all the time. There were different twists on that in this movie that I loved, just like using the momentum of a frontward flip to like hook the guy's neck while she's front flipping and
Right.
throw his face into the ground. There was one that like I genuinely went, that was so cool. And it was in the evidence room when she did the somersault through the guy's legs and then hooked his legs with her legs as she was like going through. I can't even. I rewound it and went, what the crap? Because it was so cool. She like somersaults through his legs and then grabs his legs with hers and then pulls him over her and like slams him into the ground. And I was like, that was awesome. That was so cool.
Yeah. It's a great, the whole sequence is great. I liked it too. And they did a great job. That was definitely one of my highest highs as well. The fight scenes were done really well throughout the entire movie. So
yeah, and again, like even though I agree with you that it's mostly this third act that just starts to go like, okay, we're trying to force this team up movie here. But even like, you know, Mary Elizabeth Winstead running across these like bouncy tongues in this room, I was like, sick, awesome. Like I just was like, so the ways that they kept finding to change the geography or change the setup of how something should work. And then I liked, you know, like like Harley's in her skates and using roller skates as like a man, getting kicked in the face with roller skates would actually mess you up and
probably kill you.
And like using the brutality of it too, like that it's like, oh yeah, I buy that. And I just feel like sometimes with like guy superheroes, or I think of like I've talked about this before on the show. I think about like that in Die Another Day when Pierce Brosnan is just parasailing down the when he's surfing. And I feel like sometimes they'll just do like with James Bond or with Ethan Hunt, they'll be like, he can do whatever he needs to do for the moment. And I like that instead of being like, she's Harley Quinn, she can do whatever. They're like, no, she, as part of her process of trying to get over Joker, she took up roller derby. So she's like, she is good on roller skates. And part of her skill set is that she's a little bit acrobatic, and like that's kind of her. So I felt like all of that stuff was really, really entertaining and really well executed.
Yeah. I think one of my other highest highs that kind of goes along with this, which I wish they would have done this more, because I loved the fact that everyone wanted to kill Harley.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wish, as I've seen on, different comments, this would have been great if it was just a Harley Quinn movie and that was the whole plot. Yep. And like, if the Birds of Prey were already together and they like run into her, like, that's cool. Great. Whatever. You could probably make that work. But I love the fact that everyone is against her.
Yeah.
And I really, really think that that's a great movie in and of itself.
Yeah.
Because those scenes and that whole setup was such a great, it was so funny and it fit the tone so well of just being crazy and over the top. Like, I loved that so much. So it's a highest high and a lowest low, in the sense that like, oh, it was so amazing when they had it. Mm-hmm. I wish that would have been the whole thing. Like, I wish could have been extended more.
That's one of those things that makes the whole title card thing work better in this movie than it did in Suicide Squad, because you do just have all of these random characters showing up that want to kill Harley. Yes. And every time one of them shows up, it's like this person, and it says what their grievance is. And sometimes she knows what it is. Sometimes she's like, oh, this person I did. And if she knows what it is, then the screen will tell us. But then, like, Mary Elizabeth Winstead shows up and she doesn't know who that is. And it just says, question marks, grievance, question marks. Or my favorite one is when they're on the freeway and that woman pulls up on the side of them, and it's like a person, and it's like some Frida Kahlo looking MF, and it's like grievance, and it's just like, I don't know.
That's pretty great.
Great. Yeah, or like the guy that shows up and he's like got the bomb like in the slingshot in his car. And then it says like grievance, and it's like a grapefruit but with like an X through it. Like he's mad that his weenie is small. Right. And I agree with you that, again, that's why I'm like, this movie should be called The Fantabulous Emancipation of Harley Quinn. You've got a great idea for a film here. The movie is Harley and the Joker have broken up, and we get to do two things here. We get to do like this kind of fun, like single girl on the town, like having a messy breakup movie, which is, I mean, my hat is girls just want to have fun. That's my, my hat for the show,
That's a great
and and it's a very, like, I feel like this is very the style of that film.
Yes.
But that's a fun movie to do in like the comic book universe. But then because she and the Joker broke up, uh, everyone in the Gotham underworld, it's open season on Harley Quinn. There's no one protecting her anymore. So the whole underworld, and it's very, I mean, we've got, again, Chad Stahelski, we got this with John Wick, where like a lot of those films is just the whole assassin underworld. It's everyone versus John Wick, and it's him just going, and maybe they didn't want to do something that felt like a retread of that, but I feel like the tone and the comedy in this movie and Harley as a character, I'm like, go ahead and just keep it simple and just have it. And you can even put the girl with the diamond in her. You can have that. I think.
Yes.
You could have the plot where Black Mask says, "I'll help you if you get me my diamond back." You know, so she's like, while she's fighting off all these, but he also says like, "Whoever gets me the diamond first, you know, I don't really care."
Yeah.
You know?
I thought that was, I mean, honestly, that was kind of unnecessary. It was just a MacGuffin that didn't really.
I think it gives her a character to like humanize her a little bit, like this.
It
little,
does.
Yeah.
Because it brings in Cassandra Cain, and it brings that thing. But yeah, you could have it. And if it was all about this, like there's definitely that in and of itself, that whole idea is just such a great idea. And I loved it so much that I feel like it would have made it even better just focus on that the whole time.
The movie should just be called The Fantabulous Emancipation of Harley Quinn, and it should just be about her realizing that it wasn't her proximity to the Joker that kept her safe. She's fine at keeping herself safe all on her own. Right. And, you know, by the end of the movie, the underworld comes to respect her in her own right. She starts her own criminal enterprise, which we have. That all happens. That's all in the film. It's just the Birds of Prey thing. And again, I think this is like DCEU shenanigans. It's just like the problem of wanting to build out a larger universe and get more characters involved when they don't really. And again, like you said, it's like the Birds of Prey can be there. They can be one of the gangs that's like out to get her. And maybe they find out that they have goals in common and they work together in the third act.
That's how it could have worked well. Yeah. For sure.
Or they all have a bone to pick with Black Mask, so they decide to temporarily team up to, you know.
Exactly.
Something like that. But that's another thing that I liked. I didn't write it down as my highest highs, but I really do think Ewan McGregor's having a lot of fun with this role in this movie.
I agree. He is having a lot of fun. And I love Ewan McGregor. I think he's such a good actor. I don't think they executed his character very well. It's another kind of like you kind of wasted a great actor who's doing something interesting, but there's just not much there to go with. But you can tell he is having fun and he's doing a great job with it. And I wish they would have almost played that up a little bit more. Cause again, halfway through the movie, he becomes now like this, like really slimy. Whereas at the beginning, he's like, oh, he's just crazy. He's ripping people's faces off and he's doing all this stuff. And he's like,
got a terrifying
introduction. He does. And I loved that because it was dark humor. Yeah. And then he just kind of switched to this like really creepy, like misogynistic guy that's like, and I think I wish they would have gone with the first half of him, you know?
Yeah.
But that's kind of the tale of this movie. Even still, though, he was great. I like, he's always great in pretty much everything he's in. So
yeah. Another thing I got to mention in the highest highs is just the design in this film is just off the hook.
Mine too. That's one of mine.
Yep. The costume design and the production design, the lighting design, the color grading. This movie just looks amazing. It's just it's just like such a visual feast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is.
You had that one as well?
Yes, I did have that. My other highest high is Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Yeah.
She was so great in this movie.
Yeah.
I thought she was awkward, funny, also extremely cool, like in all of her abilities. I thought she played it so well. I wish there was more of her in it, but that's always a good sign is when it feels like you don't have enough. I felt like it could have been more, but I loved what I had of her because she was probably I was most surprised by her because I liked her character the most, even more than Harley in this movie. I really like Margot Robbie, what she did. she's pretty amazing at
Yeah.
playing that character and making that work
Yeah.
somehow for the tone of this movie. But Mary Elizabeth Winstead was just, I don't know, she was just the funniest and the best part of those characters for me
She
that I
kind
was
of
surprised about.
she kind of reminds me of Dave Bautista in Guardians of the Galaxy, where she's
Yes.
got this revenge plot that she's really
Yes.
serious about, but her character's kind of silly.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
I can see that for sure. But I thought
Yeah.
she played the character so well. Every time she was on, I wanted to watch more of her. And I think
Yeah.
she did a good job with it.
I almost think that if it wasn't a Birds of Prey movie and we could just were like, and you just wanted one other character to focus on a little bit more, that would be the one.
Yeah.
And I think that Journey Smollett is doing a nice job in this movie too. I
Yeah.
think Rosie Perez is like there. I thought I had a good chuckle when she had to change her shirt into the "I shaved my balls for this" shirt.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
but Rosie Perez is like, it's like, sure, whatever. Her character
Yeah.
I felt was a little underdeveloped.
Agreed.
But I really like Mary Elizabeth. I like all the Birds of Prey. I just feel like this movie's problem is that it promises a Birds of Prey film, and it's just
Yes.
not a Birds of Prey film
Yes.
at all.
Yeah.
And that's definitely one of my lowest lows. I want to name a couple more highest highs before we get to that, though. One is just the humor. I think the first time I saw this, I didn't laugh as much as I laughed this time. And I think part of the reason why I didn't laugh is I was in this phase where, like, anytime I would go watch a DCEU movie and they tried to inject a lot of humor into it, it felt to me like this desperate ploy to be more like Marvel, to be like, hey, we can be funny too. And I was like, cool, but that's not what you guys start. It just felt like not consistent with what they were already doing. But if I say, who cares, the DCU was a failed project, and I take this movie at its own, just on its own, I laughed a lot watching this movie. I thought it was like, when she is getting ready to like bail out of her apartment in that one scene and she grabs her stuffed beaver, I was like, that's hilarious. Like, she's like, I gotta have this. Like, like, there were just a lot of gags that I thought were really funny. I thought her saying "you killed my sandwich" to Rosie Perez got me. Like, I shaved my balls for this shirt. Like, there was a lot of stuff. I like her having a pet hyena. I think that's awesome. It's just, I guess that goes more with like the design thing. Like, I just think the concept and the world building here, that I like this version of Gotham City, and I feel like the execution is really strong. Totally. And I also put one in for editing, concept, and execution. Just sort of, it felt to me like Kathy Yan had an idea of how she wanted to do this, and it felt like she got to execute what she wanted to do. And it felt like it wasn't one of those movies that like lost itself in post and got noted to death, but maybe it was. I don't know.
It could have, but I agree. It seems like they made the movie they wanted. And I didn't read anything on there that there was a ton of meddling. I think the action was something that they came in they did for reshoots, but they were planning on reshoots, and I think it all worked out. Like, she wasn't kicked out. Kathy Yan wasn't kicked out. From what I read, she was a part of it, and she wanted to improve that part of the movie. So yeah, it didn't feel like there's a ton of meddling. Like, and even with the report that came out, I don't know if you saw this for Supergirl, I guess there was a lot more disagreement between James Gunn and Craig Gillespie than was hinted at. Like, there were multiple cuts that were done by both sides, and anyway, so this didn't feel like that. Feel like that.
After watching this, I do kind of get what we talked about, that Jay Stoops video where she was like, why didn't Kathy Yan direct Supergirl? And after watching this, I'm like, why didn't James Gunn hire Kathy? Or
good question. It's a good question.
Yeah. Because I definitely think
she was really good. She did a really great job.
I liked Supergirl, and I liked this a lot more. I thought this was do you have any other highest highs before we move on to?
No, I covered them all. Yeah.
Cool. What are some of your lowest lows?
I think we went over this. I mean, the name change, and just the name in general. I don't think we have to talk about that.
That's on mine as well. It's just it's named wrong, which is a problem for these kinds of movies.
Yes.
If Supergirl was called Lobo and Supergirl helps Ruth, we would all be like, "What? Like, what are you talking about?" You know, it's just
exactly.
You got to name the movie right. And I get that this is kind of a hard movie to name because even just naming it Harley Quinn would feel weird, but I think The Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn is a really solid title for the style of film this is. But they almost named it that. They sort of named it that, but
yeah, I know it's too little, too late, and it was, and a lot of my lowest lows. Well, okay, I think my other lowest low for me that I'll say, and then if we can get into some of the things that went against this movie, they're not necessarily lowest lows, but they're kind of my my reasons that might have gone into why it wasn't so good. So I think my biggest lowest low is probably the ending with Black Mask. Just his character changed, and the climax of the movie wasn't as exciting as the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
You know, like it was kind of like a standard, you know, because Cassandra Cain puts a grenade in his pocket and pulls the pin, and then he's like, oh, and she kicks him off, you know, the bridge, and he explodes.
I will say I loved that though. I thought like
yes,
I laughed really hard.
And it wasn't. It was like it was kind of serious. The tone shifted a little bit, and I think if they would have kept the playful kind of crazy tone, that would have been paid off better.
Yeah.
And I don't dislike the way that it happened. I think it was just how quick it was. And it was like, okay, I want to spend a little bit more time on this. Like, I don't mind what happened. I just think the execution was pretty poor.
Yeah, I don't know. I really liked it because it felt in line with this film. The way I just felt like this movie was very comedic from start to finish and in a good way. And I liked that they set it up. I felt like there were a lot of setups and payoffs. There were a lot of like things that would be platforms that then would come back later. And I liked that like we see Cassandra grab these grenades when they're all sort of arming themselves for the final fight. And she's like, oh, cool. You know, and then Cassandra's like this pickpocket the whole movie. She's always taking things off of other people. And so Black Mask has her, and it is this really dramatic thing. And then Cassandra just goes, hey, sorry, I took your ring. And you're like, what does that mean? And then she shows the pin. And I like that he knows immediately that because she's a pickpocket, she's planted it somewhere on him. And I just like that Harley just knows to just go over and just kick him off the dock. And I love, because this movie's rated R, that his body just explodes. And, like his like limbs and everything go flying. I was like, that's actually so funny to like have a villain who's in the middle of their monologue who's like, and I think that it also goes with the theme of this film, which is like the men are constantly underestimating the like Harley and the women. All of these men the whole film assumed that the only reason they weren't able to touch Harley for all of these years, the only reason they weren't able to like get revenge on her when she would act a fool in their clubs, is because the Joker was protecting her. None of them ever stopped to realize, like, if I actually went and tried to fight her, she would most likely destroy me. Like she would. And so she doesn't need her boyfriend's protection. So I think that the fact that like Black Mask thinks that he has the upper hand and he's monologuing and he's doing this, you know, and that like the film's building up toward this kind of darker ending, and then it's just like, no, idiot, I just put a grenade in your pocket. And like I was like, yeah, that's right, like just end the movie by just kicking this guy off a pier and he blows up. Which I kind of like, but I get what you're saying. I get that I think
it's almost could have been the tone and the timing of it, even if it was a little bit different. But it's
the whole color palette of the third act finale changes into David Ayer's Suicide Squad movie, and it's not as fun as the color palette of the rest of the film. But I mean, it's nighttime, you know.
Yeah, it's fine. It's not the biggest thing, but I was left underwhelmed, and I'm sure that on a second viewing it might be just fine, and I have no problems with it, you know. Sometimes the second viewing, when you're expecting it, like, oh yeah, okay, it does work better. Okay.
I mean, and then you were talking about like the stuff that is there that goes against the film, but maybe is not the film, because
Yes.
I have that written down in my lowest lows too, where it's like, it's not necessarily the film's fault, but I just wrote down the DCEU, that it's just like,
Yeah.
it's not really your fault, Kathy Yan, that like this was sequentially where it was in a batch of films that were just always kind of at odds with each other. Like, it just, if you take this movie versus Batman versus Superman versus Wonder Woman versus Man of Steel versus Wonder Woman 1984, it's just sort of like, where does this movie fit in this expanded universe of characters? And I get why, like, when it came out, it just sort of felt like, what are you guys doing with this? What's the vision of this? And I don't think that's this movie's fault necessarily.
No,
but
it is, that was definitely working against it, because the DCEU is a mess in many ways. Looking back, this movie stands out a lot better, but back then it just kind of fell into the crowd that was around it that wasn't really that great. And this, someone said this too on a comment, which you said, it's like everything feels like a course correct. Everything feels like, oh, we gotta do this, and we're trying to change it while it's going. And it's like, so this comes out and it does feel like it has an identity, but it's in the mix of everything else that doesn't have that identity. So it kind of works against it. It's not the movie's fault. That's a situational thing around it that they couldn't really do anything about.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I kind of feel like in the DC world, standalone films and standalone kind of like making a trilogy for one character works better, you know, whether it's Todd Phillips' Joker films, or whether it's Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, or I just am like, I don't know if these characters, like, once you've established a really clear tone for a universe, I'm already going like, what's Batman look like in this James Gunn DCU?
Exactly.
You know, and how are you gonna, because I like the feeling of Matt Reeves's world, and that's maybe something you and I will talk about one day, because I know we have different feelings about that, but like, I like that feeling for Batman. I don't see how something like that fits into what James Gunn has already established. I'm curious about how dark they can take it from Superman and Supergirl, but I don't know. It's like, if I just take this movie on its own, I go, I would totally watch a trilogy of this character. There is technically a trilogy of this character, from David Ayer's Suicide Squad to this film to The Suicide Squad. It's kind of a little Harley Quinn trilogy.
It's true.
But it's a very disjointed trilogy and very messy. And I would say this is the strongest entry. Were there other things you were thinking about that were working against this film that you wanted to talk about?
So there's a couple things. This is going to be the biggest thing that I'm going to talk about. And this is something that I would love, first of all, to hear your input, but also what people may think. So I want to make sure I say this correctly. Women
shouldn't make movies.
That's not what I
Listen, I want to make sure that I say this correctly. Women suck at movies.
No, I never said that. I did not say that.
Let me make sure I phrase this correctly.
Yeah. So this is the thing. Okay.
Yeah.
There's obviously a big thing about women filmmakers and women in movies and films where women are at the center and they're the focus. Okay. And I have no problem with these. Like, I think it's great. I think it should, there should be movies like that. There should be, women should get more opportunities to make films. Obviously, Kathy Yan did an awesome job here. What's her name? Is it Patty Jenkins?
Patty
who did
Jenkins.
Wonder Woman. Amazing. Like, there are amazing women filmmakers.
Chloe Zhao, Catherine
Bigelow.
Gerwig.
That's the one I couldn't think of too. Just awesome, right? So here's the thing: we have a lot of people online and just in our world that really don't believe that, that they are misogynist, or they're whatever you want to call them. I think they are really a loud minority.
Yeah.
They're a very loud minority, right? And they kind of have come after this film and many films like this. The thing that the movie did that wasn't to its advantage is that they didn't have any male characters that were redeemable. Now, that is like, again, I watched this movie and I see what they're going for, and I thought it was funny. I didn't take any offense to it as a man. Like, I wasn't even thinking about it, but like looking through, it's like, if you give this loud minority anything to run with, they will run with it. And this movie didn't have any redeemable male characters. They were all bad, and they were all misogynist, and they were all doing stuff that are, really low things to do. And that's a lot of ammunition for that loud minority to use.
Sure.
And they used it for this film. And so when you have that loud minority that talks all this crap on the movie, the people who are in the middle that don't really care much about it will hear that and be like, oh yeah, that's true. And then they'll kind of get turned off by it. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like
I get what you're saying, and I that you're not saying you agree with people who are
right.
Like, hey, how come all the men are? But
I agree. Yes,
but it gives them ammunition to
yes.
discredit the film and to. But I would also argue, and I think you would agree with this. I think like it's obvious. I think that's all by design. I think this is very much like a girls rule and boys drool movie. Like it's having fun with the concept of it being a breakup film and being like this, like the word emancipation is about her being like, oh, I don't need to be tied to my identity is I'm the Joker's girlfriend. I have plenty of going on, just me for living for myself. And I don't really need like a man to define what my role in the world is. And so very much by design, the men of this film are bad. Now, we do have one good man. We've got the guy whose restaurant she lives above. Now he does sell her out. He sells her out, but also like that's something she would do. Like that's like
could be.
Like she literally like sells the kid out at one point. And she goes, "What can I say? I'm a terrible person."
Yeah.
And like the end of the movie is her going, "You make me want to be a slightly less terrible person."
Yeah.
So in defense of anyone who goes, "Well, the men are all bad characters," it's like the women are all bad. Like the thing about this movie is everybody's
bad. Yeah.
Everybody's bad. And I think that like I don't think anyone would watch John Wick and go, how come no one in this movie isn't a killer? It's like, because everybody in the movie's a killer.
That's true.
And so I think that rather than it being all the women are good and the men are all bad, I think everyone in this film, a bad title, in Birds of Prey, this movie's about like the scum of the scum in Gotham City. And it's about Harley Quinn fighting her way through and that's the character of Gotham City is like there's a lot of scumbags in Gotham City. And so
it is by design, and I don't know if even having one good male in it probably wouldn't have saved it. This is unfortunately a movie that loud minority is gonna go after, and I do think it worked to its disadvantage because those people just can't. They don't get it. They're not going to try and get it. They're going to trash on it no matter what. And so
like
it's
our introduction to our main character's like value system is she's literally like the night before she went out and got blackout drunk and jumped on a man's legs and broke his legs in half because he insulted her.
So crazy.
And then hungover in the morning, she goes and gets like a breakfast sandwich, which by the way they shot this breakfast sandwich, I was like, that is actually the tastiest looking thing I've ever seen
real good
in my life. When people can shoot food in a way where you're like, geez, I need a bacon, egg, and cheese right now. But her whole thing is like, she doesn't care about anyone or anything. All she cares about is the fact that Rosie Perez made her drop her sandwich. And she even says, she's like, when you lose something that you really love, it puts things into perspective. And what she's talking about is her sandwich.
But the funny thing is, this is actually what I thought was pretty brilliant because it is funny. And it's supposed to be funny. But the sandwich represents everything that she's already done. She has nothing. She uses it to buy the $1.50 that she has or whatever. She uses to buy this sandwich. This is the first thing that she has done for herself. Right. And it was a great way, like, even though it's like, oh, it's a sandwich, doesn't matter. It was a great representation of the step that she had made for herself, which I thought was really cool. But it is also hilarious and I have been meaning to make an egg sandwich for the past few days because it looks so good. I haven't
Yeah.
had the chance yet, but anyway.
I ordered one. I literally got
Oh, you
one
did?
like delivered to my door because I was like, I need that.
That's,
I
that's
went
good.
and found one, and it wasn't as
Nice.
good as the one from the movie looked.
Oh, that's too
But
bad.
it was all right. Yeah, I think that the point is, I think anyone who says this movie sucks because all of the men suck, I would say every character in this movie is a scumbag. That's the
It's
point of the
true.
movie. There
Yeah.
are no characters in the film who aren't scumbags.
Yeah.
Even like Rosie Perez being like the cop who's trying to get justice is an
Yeah.
alcoholic who is willing to bend the rules to,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
all about moral relativism,
Yeah.
and it's all anti-hero stuff. So I don't think,
Totally.
yeah. But
Yeah.
I get what you're saying in that it's a
Yeah.
thing that could cause some people to
Yeah.
disengage.
It's unfortunate, and honestly, I don't even know what they could do about it. But
Yeah.
anyway, I think that was working against it. The other couple things that I see working against it. So I didn't care about this, but apparently Cassandra Cain is a really big character in the comics.
Oh,
She does become Batwoman, I believe, at one point. I don't follow the comic lore that much, but everybody, a ton of people were really mad that they really changed that character.
oh, sure.
So it was like and it didn't see, everyone was like, why didn't you just create a new character?
Yeah, I had
And
no
they felt like they
idea
would have
that
been fine.
I had no idea this was supposed to be a character from the comics because she
Yeah.
seems so much like a
Yeah.
creation of this film.
Exactly. And so
Yeah.
it's almost like, yeah, maybe they should have done that, because if you're going that far off, and people get, when you take a character that's very beloved and you just change them just kind of for no reason, when you could have just created a new character, that seems to be working against it. The last thing that's really working against this film is that it's R-rated. Now, whether or not, like, this is the interesting thing about R-rated films. Like, you make this movie, if you ever do a team up movie and you have Harley Quinn in it again, she has to censor herself.
Right.
And then it feels like an inconsistency of the character,
Mhm.
which I always find interesting. It's not the worst thing in the world, but the big problem with having an R rating is that a big portion of this fan base was younger and was not allowed to see it because of the R rating. Could have been, I mean, I don't know. It's always a weird thing, but it was working against it. There was a lot of people who couldn't really see this movie because of that.
Yeah, and it's weird because I don't know that I would argue that the movie is better as a PG-13 movie. I don't know that it is. I feel like it's more fun and funny and like entertaining as an R, but I get that box office wise, which is these movies with these massive budgets, with these $100+ million major comic
Mhm.
book tentpole films, they need to be able to sell as many tickets as possible. So it's a weird thing because
Yeah.
that inconsistency is a thing that, like, I always felt like I love the movie Logan, but it's weird that all of a sudden in this movie we're just like, now Logan's gonna say the F word every other word.
Yeah.
And it's like,
It's
well,
weird.
and you could say like, well, it's years later and he's drinking a lot. It's like, yeah, but Logan's supposed to be like 300 years old. So I don't buy that, like in a 20-year span, he's like, now I say the F word. It's like,
Exactly.
I think he always said it, but the movies were sent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this movie does feel like it has more to do. It's more like Deadpool than it is like
It is. Yeah.
it's the Deadpool of the DCEU.
Yeah.
And I feel like to do this film right, to do the scumbaggery of this film right, to make this movie as fun as it is with the violence and with I wouldn't argue that it's a stronger film as a PG-13, but maybe it would have found more of an audience, and who knows?
Yeah. I know it's hard. It's really
Yeah.
hard, because you never know what you want to get with that. And they did spend less on this movie. I think it was like 84 million.
That
They also
feels about
spent,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
they also spent a lot. Oh, I guess the last thing, I think COVID had a problem as well.
Oh, for
which
sure.
They had nothing. They couldn't do anything about that. But then also the Joker came out and it made $1 billion. So who knows?
Yeah.
Right before this
Yeah.
movie, so.
Well, and what a weird confluence of movies to be coming out at
I
the same
know.
time, to
Very weird.
have Todd Phillips' Joker film and this movie, and they're so different. And I think that also, it's like when I saw this in the theater, I just was like, I don't like all this like joking around, goofing off stuff. And at the time, I think I wanted something that took itself a little more seriously. Watching it today, I was like, this movie's a blast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like the context of when it came out, where it lands in the DCEU made it feel weird at the time. But going back to it, I really feel like there's a lot that's done at a really high level here that's really
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
What about do you have any things that was like your big shocks? We've covered some of them for me, but did anything stand out for you?
No, not really. I mean, when she jumped on the guy's legs, that was like, oh my gosh. Like,
That was mine. I was going to say, I forgot how violent this film is.
yeah.
There were several moments where I said out loud, "Oh my goodness!" And
Yeah.
one was when she stomps on that guy's legs. I did not remember that our introduction to Ewan McGregor is him peeling a guy's face off,
Yeah.
and then his henchman holds the guy's face in his hand, and
Yeah.
or like Ewan McGregor does, and he like tosses
Yeah.
it. I was like, "What in the world?" They
Yeah.
peeled that guy's face off. I was like, "You don't see stuff like that in like really, really violent horror films."
Right. Right.
And then also like there is a moment again of leg breaking again in the evidence room fight scene
Oh
where
yeah.
she
Yeah.
kicks that guy in both of his legs and just
Yeah.
breaks both of his legs in half. I was like, oh my goodness. And then
Crazy.
also
Yeah.
Ewan McGregor getting blown up at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
I had forgotten about the ultra violence of the film, and I
Yeah.
really enjoyed it, which is again why I go like, I don't know that it's stronger without it, but
It's yeah. Yeah. And I'm not talking about the merits of the movie is should it or shouldn't be, but yeah, it was, and honestly it probably, I mean, this movie should have been rated R. So and
one thing
it was working with it, but
one thing I wrote down for shocks is I was like, did they kill Bruce when that bomb went off? It really felt like they killed the hyena. And I was like, oh my gosh, they killed this hyena. But then at the end of the movie, I was like, nah, he didn't die. I guess,
which I thought was kind of a dumb. She's
it was
like,
a little bit of a cop out.
Where is it? And then, oh, he was fine. I was like, why did you even put that in there?
Yeah, why is it even in there?
What?
And also I'm like, I don't think he is fine. He like jumped on the bomb. I think he's dead.
Yeah.
But I was like, why have her have this really cute pet hyena if you're just gonna kill it? And also, like, there's just sort of this rule, like, don't kill the pets. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, in a way that I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
John Wick's whole thing is that the dog was killed, but I felt like if her pet died, she should like go on a rampage of
yeah. I know, and that was kind of where it started falling apart for me.
Yeah.
It was just a weird way that it happened and how it all came out. But
this movie definitely would be stronger if it was just every gangster in Gotham that has a bone to pick with Harley Quinn coming after her, and her just running amok through the town, taking them out one by one.
And it'd be awesome if the hyena was with her too.
Totally.
That would be way cool.
Totally. Until they realized that, like, oh, like we thought that her protection was Mr. J, but actually it's not. And then she makes a deal with somebody at the end, like, hey, you can either keep fighting me or you can hire me. Like, you can like make me. Yeah. But that takes us to themes, which one of my themes that I wrote down was how serving a master can sort of hide your inner strength from you. The idea of, like, she talks about like what a Harlequin is and how she was just sort of a jester to this boss. And I think that there's an interesting parallel between her and Black Mask's right-hand man, this guy who is probably sadistic enough to be a mob boss in his own right, but is choosing to be the right-hand man and he's kind of doing all the dirty work of Ewan McGregor. And I thought that was an interesting theme of like how you sort of abdicate your own strength to the perceived strength, like how like the people in charge, bosses, only have as much power as we give them. We sort of give them this perceived power of like, well, nobody dares to mess with Black Mask because all of these people work for him. It's like, well, What if those people decide to go into business for themselves? Then what has he got?
Yeah.
Like, is he strong enough on his own to hold it down? And
Yeah.
I thought that theme was kind of interesting. And also the way that they parallel that with just kind of patriarchy in general, that it's sort of how patriarchy constantly underestimates the strength and capability of women on their own.
Right.
And
yes.
Yeah.
And that goes into my theme of the women are stronger together than they are apart, which is that's where it all ends, right? I love your theme, actually, that you because it's like, now that you say that, it's like, yeah, that was a big theme throughout the movie. But yeah, that's women do, they can do it on their own. They're strong. They're all strong together, which everyone is stronger when they're together.
I know, but then I also think that undercuts the thing, because it's also supposed to be about how, like, Harley actually doesn't need to be like on a team. Harley's not even one of the birds of prey.
She's not. Like, why are they in this movie?
I know. And even in the Birds of Prey, it's like Rosie Perez sort of abdicates her power to the police department. And she's like, well, I can only do what the chief will allow me to do. And once she's cut loose, once she's suspended, it sort of frees her to actually tap into her full power, and the Huntress is kind of the same way, where it's like when she's working for someone else, she's sort of held back. And the same with Canary. When she's working for someone else, her power is sort of kept in check, but when she's on her own, I don't know,
they're a little
those themes kind of work against each other a little bit, because movies like this always want to be about how teamwork is the best way to do it. And that's what the Suicide Squad movies want to be about, is how even the bad guys need to work together sometimes. And I feel like, again, this movie would be stronger without the Birds of Prey. It would be stronger if it was just Harley Quinn realizing, like, I've got plenty to offer on my own. And
I agree.
Okay, so the ending. I mean, we talk about this in our scores, but we've already talked about that third act and how you felt like it kind of deflated a little bit. The tone sort of went down. Is there anything else in the ending we haven't covered that you wanted to hit on?
No, I mean, hey, I did, as we talked about, that scene, the entire action scene for the third act was great up until the fog. But really, really fun stuff that's going on, and a great way. This is the other thing that I wanted to talk about. Oh my goodness. Journey Smollett. What's her character's name? Black Canary. Or Canary.
Black Canary. I don't know.
Whatever, whichever one it is.
Are we calling her Black Canary, like Black Ranger? Like she's the black one?
Let's double check. Let me look and see if her name is Canary. It's probably just Canary. I swear there's a Black Canary somewhere.
Have you ever seen that Key and Peele sketch where they keep calling him the Black Ranger, and he's like, guys, I'm not the Black Ranger. He's like, I am.
No, I haven't. I gotta go watch that. I think
they're like Black Ranger. He's like, I'm the blue one. I'm the blue one.
Oh, that's great. It could be. It's probably just Canary.
Yeah.
This is the thing. She, first of all, I thought she did a really good job. I liked her character, but then in the end, she has a superpower. And it came out of nowhere for me.
They platformed it. They had her break a glass earlier in the film.
And it was just kind of like, okay, they're superhuman. Like, why haven't you been using this more?
Totally. That's the problem with Canary's superpower, is she should be using it throughout the film. And also, this movie does such a good job with its action sequences that it sort of like pissed me off when Harley she tells everyone, cover your ears, and then Harley skates out into the sonic wave of Canary singing, and 30 feet into it, she plugs her ears, and I was like, why did they do it that way? Why did they do it? Like, I get that she needs to use her arms to start skating, but they have her skate clearly into this sonic wave that is exploding people's heads, and then she just plugs her ears, but she's already in it. And I was like, that bothers me. A movie that has been so detailed with its action sequences and been so detailed about how the mechanics and physics of things work. It bothered me that all of a sudden the character that said everyone plug your ears puts her exposed ears and head right in the path of the, and also you're right. It's we just sort of all of a sudden have this X-Men superpower moment.
Yeah, it was just kind of weird, and then they
yeah.
didn't do anything about it, and they didn't talk about it.
Yeah,
Also,
and that is Canary's power, and
it is.
they platformed it barely at the beginning, but it should be used throughout.
Yes, and her name is Black Canary.
Okay.
I'm seeing that on here. So we weren't
not racist. Okay.
Yes. Barbara Gordon, Black Canary. Yep. Oh, yep. Okay. Anyway,
and she's Barbara Gordon.
No, so sorry. It said Barbara Gordon. Barbara Gordon initially is the one who established the Birds of Prey.
Oh, okay.
I was reading on, it said Barbara Gordon, Black Canary, like it was going through. So she's not in the movie.
Rosie Perez isn't supposed to be Barbara Gordon, is she?
No, I think Harley Quinn was supposed to be Barbara Gordon in the sense of, I could be wrong. Somebody tell us. I don't know. But Barbara Gordon has something to do with the Birds of Prey.
This movie shouldn't be a Birds of Prey movie. That's
the point, really.
That's its biggest problem. I found that whole action sequence at the end riveting. I love, again, just like the inventiveness. Like there's a part where they go down a slide and Mary Elizabeth Winstead stalls herself in the slide waiting for a guy to come down and jumps on top of him and just stabs him in the face with a knife over and over again as they're sliding down. I was like, awesome. It's just like, this movie's so cool. And like, I liked the humor of Harley Quinn all of a sudden being in her skates and someone being like, when did she have time to tie her skates on? And, but all the different ways that they constantly find to keep it from just being punching people and stuff, I thought was just so much fun. And cool. Anything else you want to cover?
No, honestly, I think we covered it.
All right, let's get into scores then. On our show, we give scores out of 10, 10 being the best. We give a score for the technical rating. That's writing, editing, design, acting, all of the technical elements of the filmmaking. A score for the ending, a score for rewatchability, a score for the cultural impact, and a score for our subjective thoughts on the film. So, Cramer, what is your technical rating for Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of Harley Quinn?
I'm giving it a 7.5. I think, after just talking about it all, like, and this is good on rewatch. I probably would have scored it less if we were in the middle of the DCEU.
Yeah.
But like looking back, it helps you appreciate it a little bit more. And there really is a lot of great craft here. I'm docking most points because halfway through the movie, it kind of loses a little bit of it. Right. But the cinematography is awesome. The color grading is great. The direction is good. The script has a good journey. It has a good structure. Actually, the structure is kind of weird. It takes a long time to really get out of the first act because of all the characters, but it wasn't bad. That's an instance where like, oh yeah, it justifies the reason to have it. But the second half kind of pulls it down, but still a lot of really good stuff in here.
Yeah, I have this at an 8.5. I feel like where I'm docking points for it is like the title of the film and also just the fact that like it shouldn't be a Birds of Prey movie. I think that it's fine if the Birds of Prey should be in here. I think it's a stronger movie if we just stay focused on Harley Quinn, but luckily we are primarily focused on her for most of the film. And what works here works at such a high level technically. That's why I gave it such a high rating, because I was so impressed with the execution of the concept. I felt like this felt like a comic book movie made by Baz Luhrmann at times, which was interesting because we've got Ewan McGregor here. We even did a Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend musical sequence like Moulin Rouge with Ewan McGregor. I was like, that's crazy. There's a lot that I love here. I love the design. I love the costumes. Every like frame of the film is just so much fun. I didn't feel like it lost as much oomph in the final act as you did, but I get what you're talking about. I think it's just when the movie's trying to make it this team up movie that it just sort of feels like I'm not sure that this is necessary, but it was fun enough that I didn't really mind. How about rewatchability?
Or do we want to do ending?
Oh, ending. That's right.
Yeah.
Ending.
I'm going to give a 7, mainly for that action sequence. Like that was a lot of fun. The very end when they kill Black Mask, I see what you're getting at. I think they could have made it, had the pacing a little bit different, but still a solid ending. And you get it's like she gets the lesson, right? Harley gets the lesson, and then she goes off and steals their car, which was also kind of a great little thing to keep her character consistent as well. So I thought it was good ending.
Yeah, I mean, I had a blast with this ending. I feel like the execution of the action sequences and the chase sequence with the roller skates and the cars was like awesome. And that's something that like very easily could have been really like annoyingly bad. It could have been like really corny, her hanging onto this car that's speeding down the road with roller skates on. Like it could have been like, this is so stupid. But the execution was so, it didn't, you know what it could have been? It could have been like way too CGI. It felt really in camera and practical and like impressive and cool. And so I'm giving it an 8.5 just because, and what I'm docking points for is I just feel like when the movie tries to become something that it's not, a la the story of how the Birds of Prey were formed, it's losing track of what it is. But again, I'm still on the ride and having a great time.
Nice.
Now, rewatchability.
Rewatchability, I gave a 7. I think I should watch this again at some point, and I probably would have a different opinion on it, but it's got fun stuff in it, you know, and I think the jokes might land better on the second time. This is a movie that you can rewatch. So yeah.
I gave it a 9, and I think that shouldn't come as a surprise because this was such a like really satisfying rewatch for me. It was, I just saw, it was like watching it for the first time, to be honest, and I just appreciated it so much more. And just really had a great time with it.
Nice.
Cultural impact.
Okay, cultural impact, I gave a 4.
Yeah.
I think the problem is it's in the middle of the DCEU. It did get a bad rap. It was in the middle of COVID as well, which seems to bring down a lot of those movies just in general of just being during COVID, to no fault of the movie. But I think it just, and also that a lot of men really went after this movie, which it's like, hey, give it a chance or watch it again, and you might have a different opinion on it. So I just think it hasn't had as big as an impact as it should have, but it just hasn't done that much.
Yeah, I've got it at a 6, and that's only because I feel like lately, and it's not just us, but I feel like lately this movie's sort of being reappraised, and I think it might be because of the response to Supergirl and people kind of going back and going like why does this keep not working? And people are looking at this movie and going, why did that? And if you look at it, it's like it was well reviewed at the time.
It was
well received. It just didn't really perform at the box office. But the people who saw it were like, that was pretty good. And I think that as people go back to it, they're like, it might be like great. It might actually be like quite good. And so I feel like at the time, it didn't make a big splash, but it's having what I think it's aging really well.
Yeah.
Okay, and how about your subjective score?
My subjective score is a 7. It might go up on rewatch, and even just talking about it, like there's a lot of really good stuff in here. There's a lot of fun stuff. Maybe my problems with it won't be as hard. It won't be as harsh on a second viewing. But for right now, like really, really solid movie. A lot better than most. Like there's a lot of really good stuff to like here, and a lot of funny stuff. They took a lot of, you can tell that they cared about this movie that they were making, you know, whereas some like, or, you know, some of it is the studio meddling or whatever, but this one seemed to actually have a lot of care that was put into it. And I feel like you can feel that on the screen.
Yeah, I've got it in an 8.5. I don't know that I would have given it that 6 years ago when I saw it in theaters, and I think that has a lot to do with just where it lands in the wider universe of films that it was in. But watching it today, I just was like, the whole time I just was like, man, I like this so much, and I just kept being impressed with how entertaining and well executed the action was. How just cohesive and cool and vibrant the world was. And really enjoyed this. So let us know in the comments what you think of this film. Have you watched it since you saw it in theaters? Have you ever watched it? Are you going to go watch it? And what do you think? What are your thoughts? What did we miss? What did you think we were going to talk about that we didn't? Next week, to get ready for the Odyssey, it's not quite time for the Odyssey yet, but we are going to watch the movie Troy, which is was almost directed by Christopher Nolan. He almost got his shot at doing the Odyssey, and he made
so he was originally going to make this, and then Wolfgang Petersen's schedule freed up, and they were like, oh, he was on it, we'll give it to him. And then they told Christopher Nolan, well, we'll give you Batman instead. And which is, I'm kind of glad that all happened, but that is what really got the wheels turning in his head and ultimately has led to the Odyssey. So thought, hey, let's look at Troy. I mean, I loved it when I was younger. It'll be interesting to see what we think on a rewatch.
I've never actually watched it all the way through. I've seen scenes. So I'm excited to watch Troy. And
this will be very interesting. This is like a reverse of this week. Is like,
yes.
This will be great.
So if you want to rewatch Troy with us or watch Troy for the first time, watch that. That's what we're going to be watching for the show next week. And we will see you then. Like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you next time.
See you later.